We're going to touch on a subject that seems to have been the theme of the week, right? The gaps in communication that we can start bridging with business architecture. So Bill introduced me a little bit. I'm with Centric Consulting. I'm a senior manager. I'm also our capability lead for the methodology we use to work with our clients. Stacia?
I'm Stacia Geib. I'm also with Centric Consulting. Joe and I started 2 years ago together. We were in the industry for many, many years before that, doing a variety of different roles. And we'll kind of touch on how we think our variety of roles, going from product people to customer experience to process to business agility to program management. We'll kind of talk on how we found that to be an interesting journey and how it's helped us, we think, bridge the chasm.
So, Jills of all trades.
Oh, I like that. And as Bill said, there's going to be a little bit of interactivity, so make sure you get your phones ready. We're going to make y'all engage. We're going to wake up after lunch because it's really hard. And we'll talk about how we make this bridge. So first, why we're here, because we have gone to the other side now. We're consultants, and that gets questioned. We have good intent. We love to learn. And in coming into consulting, Joe and I and our team members were talking a lot about how we're seeing some common trends. And common trends and themes is why we all come together here at the Business Architecture Guild. So we thought we would share one we've been seeing more recently, which is, in general, we're all becoming technology and data companies, right? Everything's really being facilitated by technology and data. And so as that happens, we're seeing that the impact of the business and IT communication chasm is actually having more impact in trying to execute on strategic initiatives. So we want to be here to share how we're seeing business architecture help be that bridge and other tools. So we're excited to talk to you today about that and see also what you're learning in this area. So one of the major pain points we're seeing across the industries and the clients is this communication gap. And why this is important, the first thing to note is it's very unintentional, right? No one goes in saying, we're going to create this communication chasm. It's a resultant of a lot of different things. But what was interesting, I was at a SIMS Summit in Michigan, and there was probably 75% lead, CIOs, head of technology that were there, and 25% like me that were representing the business side or revenue growth, CMOs, data architects. And they kept asking, if there was one thing that you're trying to accomplish and focus on this year, what would it be? And that kind of represents the quotes we have here. It was interesting. The CIOs were talking a lot about how their main objective was to, even though them and their teams try really hard to communicate with their business partners and help translate what technology and data could do for furthering their strategic initiatives, they felt like their number one thing they still had to do was communicate even more and figure out ways to bridge. And then I thought it was really interesting on the other side, there was about 25%. I was actually on a panel with a CMO and a head of data analytics who was driving insights for growth. And all of us were saying the exact same thing. Our number one thing was, we know we're becoming technology and data companies, and we know we need to understand it more so that we can all more effectively use it to help further our strategic intents. So we're all saying the same thing. We want to improve communications. And it's so important because we are trying to solve even more complex problems than ever before. Digital transformations. We're all trying to untangle a very tangled ball of yarn that has been created over time and figure out how to move it forward in a common direction. So a couple of themes we've heard, and we're going to be interested in hearing themes, as you think about the communication chasm, what impacts it has. Some of the ones we've been hearing is it slows progress. There's wasted time. Now, this isn't wasted time in like rework or fail fast. This is years. Why does it take us a year to get something done? Also, work suffers and the divide is continuing to grow.
So we want to hear from you for a second. Get those phones ready. We've got, you can either scan the QR code or you can type it directly in to the web address. But we just want to hear a word or two from you about when you see these chasms in your organization, because I'm guessing you all probably do based on the conversations we've had so far. What does it mean? What does it cause in your organizations?
I'm going to pause. I still see a few phones up. And we also have it on the other screen, so don't worry. When this goes away, it'll come back. Okay, and I gotta share again. Screen one. Okay, so we're gonna figure this out. Maybe. Here we go. Okay,
Ooh, look at that.
the words are coming up, Joe.
Ooh, confusion and frustration. Yes. She says like they're good words.
Online, we hope you're participating.
Oh, yeah.
There's information in numbers.
So we're definitely seeing those same 5 or so words sitting in the middle of that diagram.
Could you switch that screen to showing it for others? I think I'm sharing online, but it's not showing up there. Sorry, technology challenges.
Oh, okay.
Do I got to duplicate? Stop share. So we have that.
Duplicate the displays.
There we go.
So there's the Zoom meeting. Share. Right here. Oh, let's try that.
You might have to go. The,
Go for
We
it.
said we're business architects, not technology people, right? Right?
Those online are seeing it, but not the room here, just for.
There we go.
what we're doing.
Awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. So as I was watching the word cloud form, which y'all could not see, these 4 to 5 words stayed pretty steady. This is what you guys are seeing and feeling in your organizations. Frustration, confusion, misalignment. Misalignment is probably the word that we use the most when we're talking about this, because, you know, for when we're talking with executives, when we're talking with people in the organizations, it's an activating word, right?
Mhm.
If something is misaligned, then you can realign it.
I think what's also interesting is some words of mistrust. That one keeps getting a little bigger, bigger disconnection. At the same time, the word hero is showing up in silos. I like the word hero.
Yeah.
As Ben was talking about yesterday, though, we don't want to be the personal hero. We want business architecture or our solution partners to be the heroes, but that's a good one.
All right.
Awesome. Well, you can keep them coming. We will share those out and see if anyone wants to get the results of that at the end. So here I have to re-extend. How do we extend? Yeah, no, you said I have to re-extend the desktop? I can re-share, but I'm not sure that's gonna do.
Yeah.
There we are.
Ah, thank you.
Settings. Down.
Yes, there we go. Thank you. Okay.
It's like one of those trust exercises. Take 2 steps to the left, go forward, Don't fall off the stage.
Won't let me. Yeah, it's grayed out.
Yeah, we can just show.
I'm gonna go back to the way you did it.
So a lot of you, I suspect with the word hero, started to preview what we're going to talk about in response to those words, which is the role as a business architect in helping to build those bridges across the chasm, right? And we don't do this by ourselves. People come with us. Hopefully, we take them with us. And one of the ways we do that is by creating a common vocabulary. Now we're
It's
not
not.
online.
I will share.
Okay.
Keep going.
So a lot of times you have a combination of factors which are causing this, right? You have the external factors, which are how rapidly markets are changing, new technologies are being introduced, your customers change their minds about what they want, they learn new things. And you have all those internal silos that everybody is coming from their own point of view, from their own place of expertise, right? And sometimes they're saying the same thing, but the words they're using are different. So we use business architecture. Whoops, thank you. We use business architecture to help start framing things into the same language. And a lot of times we don't need to go a lot further than our 4 core domains to start bringing everybody into the same frame of reference. And we can use those without ever using the language of business architecture directly. We can talk about it in terms of what does it mean to the organization. The value streams are about what the value is that we deliver. How do we deliver that value? Who are we delivering that value to? Capabilities are about what needs to be true for us to deliver that value. Information is what do I have to know? Where do I have to go to get those pieces of information that will help me understand the value and the capabilities? And then organization is who needs to be in the room when I'm having the conversation. So we can build that common frame of reference. We can do it without ever putting a map in front of anyone who isn't a business architect.
Okay, so if business architecture helps create bridges, so do our key partners. And we've been hearing that all week this week, right? And it's really quite exciting. I know as Joe and I were getting ready for this presentation, like Joe and I do, it's late at night one night and we're sharing what we're seeing on LinkedIn. And Wendy's post came up and it was all about it takes a village in a digital transformation, and we can't agree more. So we've broadened it to say it takes a village when solving complex problems that so many of us are facing, and it takes our key partners. So at one point we had this great idea. We're like, we're on Thursday. We can be like a wrap to this whole summit and call out all the great presentations and how they fit around this wheel. And then we realized they all fit around this wheel. And if we call anyone out, we really risk losing people in terms of not mentioning them. But wow, what a great session. We heard how BAs partner with strategy teams to actually deliver on and inform the strategic direction and show progress against it. We heard a lot about the combination of BAs with product managers, with customer experience, with service designers. I was so excited to see the department in the
We may have shared that already back home.
Yeah, we were so excited to see that. And how you solve problems to make sure you're really focusing on customer outcomes and getting to value delivery quickly. We were even hearing that just now earlier. And then change managers, applaud everyone. I think Brian said it first in terms of we're all humans, but it got repeated over and over and over again. As humans, it's how we receive information, how we think about information that's presented to us. We have to be thinking about our audiences as we go and helping them through change. And then we all know the partnerships with business process management, our EA partners, all getting to being able to deliver value quickly. So we love all of our partners, but it does make you wonder with all these partnerships, why is it still hard? Why do we still have this chasm? So we were starting to dig into this and making sure we thought about it because we're all working really hard. I think Brianne also said in her personal purpose, using empathy, being empathetic to her audience. We heard a lot about what's in it for me. How do you translate the story? Joe was just talking about telling the story that we learned from our maps in a way that's going to help people make decisions, come along, come together. But one of the things we've been hearing in our 2 years in consulting as we go across now, it's not just in our own lenses. So Joe coming from FedEx, I was in financial banking beforehand, and before that in consumer electronics manufacturing and automotive. And we hear a lot now in terms of people asking, gosh, we've done all this great translation. Why can our team members and our leaders still not understand how the puzzle goes together? We've done all these different efforts to translate, and still there's a struggle. So we thought, we wanted to pause a little bit and think about that and step back and go, kind of what's the root cause to this? We keep trying, right? And when you think about it, it really is human systems that have brought us to where we are. When we're kids, how are we taught in education? Math, English, social, we're taught in silos of how to think. When we go and we have our first job, it's usually in the field where I was an engineer. I got a degree in mechanical engineering. My first job was product design and automotive, being an engineer. And then what are we taught? Well, gosh, the rewards and your financial pay go up the ladder, right? Stay in your silo because that's how you get paid and you're rewarded the fastest. I actually had a really well-intentioned chief who was mentoring me, who sat me down, and he's like, you're talking about my career path, and I was telling him how I was curious. I wanted to learn across all the different silos because eventually I wanted to be a general manager of a line of business. And he goes, no, you got to go up the corporate ladder, get that pay, and then you go across. And I was like, does that really work? Or am I just going to be stuck in this silo forever? And then the other thing you think about, we wonder why our C-suite struggles with the information we're telling them. Well, how have they evolved? They got to where they are because they were brilliant at what they were doing. They probably were collaborating really well and working in partnerships and everything else, but they were excellent at sales. They were excellent at technology, or they were excellent in marketing. And then they're in the C-suite, and all of a sudden they got to make corporate decisions wearing their corporate hats, but they still they haven't lived all those different hats now that they're working with. So we share this because we did a little digging and did some data and to really understand. And what we found through a couple of different sources and research, that in general, the general population, over 75% of people want to think linearly. That's how they think. And it's not, it's just what it is. It's what they prefer. While less than 25% have the propensity to really be systems thinkers. So I'm assuming all of you are the systems thinkers, but the key message here is we're actually in the minority. We've got the iceberg. We're really trying to understand a lot of what's under that iceberg. But at the same time, we have to be patient. We have to be empathetic. And we have to keep translating often and effectively. And we're going to give you one more piece of data, and then we're going to get into some client examples. But another thing we want you to think about of why it's so hard to go across this communication chasm is our communication styles. Now, many of you, and we have taken different types of personality tests. Who's done Myers-Briggs and DISC and Strengths Finders, right? Okay, yeah, we all did it. This one was really interesting. Our colleague brought this to our team, and it's been very empowering to think about in terms of how do people think. And I'm going to challenge you all. We're going to stay awake a little bit longer. You got to interact. I'm going to describe this. This is the Herman Brain Diagnostic Tool. And I'm going to go read around the brain. We call it walking the brain when we think about all the 4 quadrants to make sure we're hitting our correct audience. And I want you to think about which one you are. And we'll do a quick little, we're not going to skip screens and go to a poll. We'll just do hand raising in the room. Sorry, those virtually. Think about it yourself. We'll see. Hopefully
They can drop it in the chat.
Oh, put it in the chat. Even better. Put your colors in. And then Ruth will give us kind of a rough glance at what we're seeing.
Very rough. You don't have to count.
No calculators required. Okay, so I'm going to start with the analytical side, the blue. And that's, I like to work with facts and figures. I prefer environments where logic and critical analysis are the drivers to decision making. If we walk to the yellow, experimental, I love to brainstorm ideas, dream big, and do my best work when I have the freedom to be creative. Where is my friend from PNC? The relational, I'm empathetic and energetic, and my energy and engagement comes when I am collaborating in a team. That's red. And then green, it's practical. I'm organized, structured, and I work best in environments with structure and organization. So we'll quickly go, who's blue when you thought about it? So, oh, that's the other thing. Yes, most of us are more than one, and we could be all 4. Just raise your hand for the dominant one, the one you prefer the most. Okay, so who's blue? Okay, we got a good 20% blue. Who's yellow? Ooh, about half, about half the room. Who's red?
Few.
I was
Okay.
really impressed with how much we've been talking about people and humans and how people feel and react to this. I feel like we have a bunch of reds in the room.
Online, there are a ton of reds.
A ton of
Awesome.
reds. And how about practical?
Yeah.
So we got pretty good balance. I like it. So that's just one thing to be thinking about. Everyone, not only are we dealing with, are they linear thinkers versus system thinkers? What have been their roles and experiences that they've had growing up? We're also dealing with how they think. And that might vary in the given moment too, as they're receiving different information. So all this has to do with why do we have to, it's to kind of give empathy to our audience. Why do we have to translate, and do it more and figure out better ways to do it? It's really, we wanted to give you the why behind it so that we were empathetic to those that we're working with.
Awesome. So a lot of you have probably seen some version of this drawing, right? All the people with the elephant, and they can't figure out that it's an elephant. They're way too close to the problem, right? And this is what happens with all the people who are in their area. They're doing their very best to succeed, but they can't stand back far enough to get the perspective. And this is again where business architecture and business architects with the different ways of thinking and some of the more collaborative frameworks that we have can come and help people move back from their position, see different perspectives, and put together the whole elephant. And this informs the framework that we use in our practice, which is heavily grounded in business architecture as a tool for us to use, but isn't how we talk necessarily with our clients and with the people who we are helping solve problems, starting with what is the strategic intent? What do you intend to achieve? How does that look when you need to operate and help them solving through that messy middle of getting from my strategic intent to actually being able to execute it? That requires a strong operating model. And don't forget the culture, because culture shapes how you will react to these changes. It shapes how you make decisions, how quickly you can move, right? So you need to keep all of those frames in mind. So with that said, we're going to spend a few minutes talking about our clients and what they have seen, right? These are problems that we've helped use business architecture to help work through with them.
There's a trick. Oh, you got it. So the first one we're going to start with is a client in the healthcare industry that had come to us, actually had a business architecture practice and wanted to work to help translate it better into what they were doing strategically. So a little background about them. Fast growth over the last couple of years really required them to try to close strategy to execution gaps and align on priorities. They had some ideas about how they wanted to go about it, and they brought us in to help them. So they were looking to translate their strategy into their future state and be able to do that roadmap that helps them prioritize and get everyone into the same ground. As we were doing interviews with them, we quickly saw that though they had a strong strategy, just like all of us, we like to use big, fancy words. They all interpreted their strategy differently. When we would ask questions about how will this result in changes for your employees, your customers, your stakeholders, your leaders, we were getting different answers. And so one of the tools we first started, we had a cross-functional team. So we'll talk about partners. We had our UX specialist was with us. We had what we call our strategy alignment architecture group. And we had business analysts. And we came together and we did an exercise with them where they had key personas. So sales would deal with the buyer persona. They would have their customer service and operations would deal with the persona that was actually interfacing with them most frequently. And we worked to put just the customer journey up on the wall. And through sub-teams, we went through and showed how their customers were experiencing their customer journey. And then we actually, doing just what some others did, we did a service blueprint underneath it because they needed to see the details and make sure everything was represented. Well, when we stepped back, there's a lot of details on the wall, just a ton. And the more we were hearing how everyone, even though the full picture was in front of them, they were still picking out the parts of the picture that were relevant to them. So we did another exercise. We kind of paused and pivoted like we all do when we need to in the moment. We started to say, okay, let's now step back, get a different perspective, and let's talk about the key moments that matter on this customer journey for all of our different key personas. And what became really interesting is you'll see that the stars lined up around the key moments that matter and where they should really be thinking about those priorities, because that's what's going to influence their buyers and help with their success. So that was a key aha moment. We talk a lot about aha moments. I don't know, business architecture, right? We all get those with our clients. We live for those aha moments. But we thought, that's still not enough. We know the moments that matter, but then we went into an exercise with them where we made them describe how will your stakeholders, internal employees, your customers, each of the personas, and your stakeholders and leaders, what are they going to see, feel, say, do differently in 5 years when you're actually moving towards and getting a lot of progress in your future state? But the key was we broke up into subgroups again, of course. The key was we made them use 6th grade language.
That was my favorite day. Do you know how many
So
times
fun.
I asked why? Just because I could.
So fun. And it's because it's so hard to get out of these big buzzwords we all learn over time, right? And so we'd be like, I don't know what transformation
Yeah,
means.
but why is that important? I don't understand.
What am I going to do different? And that led to a lot of aha moments. So for one, they said it's the first time I'm seeing our company from this view. They actually had a better appreciation coming out of it of how they participated in their ecosystem. And then through some other discussions, I'll skip one for time, but we had even the importance of their employees. They were so focused on their customers that seeing how their employees were actually the key enablers in the moments that mattered, they actually stepped back and started to reprioritize to up what they're getting their employees the tools they needed to make sure those moments that mattered when it couldn't be all digital, that employees had what they need to make it really successful. So some key aha moments, but we had to translate and translate and translate again a few more times.
Okay.
If anyone wants to learn about pathways, I don't know if anyone's seen the MIT Scissor, but they have a really good tool for thinking through how are you going to transform. You know, are you going for operational efficiency? Are you going for customer innovation? Where then you're inherently taking on all that manual work in the background, or are you step pathing through? It was also another good tool for them to realize, I think, I forget who said it, maybe it was Trump, where it was, everything's a priority, everything's number one, right? To help them really think through why prioritization matters, so that you're really thoughtful in how you guide your company. So if anyone wants to talk about that later, we can.
Yeah. So the next example actually kind of relates to the GCEA work that we did earlier. This is a company that it's not quite a startup because they've been doing innovation work together as an organization for several years, but now they're ready to start thinking about how they're going to commercialize. That's a whole new space. New people are coming into the organization, new skill sets are required, and they had very different ideas and major gaps in understanding about what that would mean for them. They didn't really even know what they didn't know. So coming to them and walking them through, well, first of all, what do you want to achieve, right? What are your goals here? But also, what do you need to be able to do? What are all those value streams? In this case, we were able to use some of that language, but in general, talking about what are the different ways, different parts of the organization deliver value, and then what has to be true. Now, I'm going to tell you the capability map under this probably does not meet the Guild's framework. It definitely does not meet the Guild's framework, but it worked for them. They were able to understand what capabilities they needed. And as we put them together and grouped them with the value change, they went, we need a new organizational structure to deliver this. We can't do it the way we are structured today. Which a few people at the top of the organization knew and had in their minds as a plan, but the rest of the organization wasn't there and didn't understand why that might be true. So this was a huge aha moment for them, from which we were able to develop an organization model and a supporting operational model to help them work through that and set them up for their next phase of growth.
Awesome.
In this case, they actually did see the maps, and it helped.
And I don't know, but we've seen a few of these also, the operating models really getting at that visual. We've seen a few of them this week as well. They can take all sorts of shapes and sizes, but being able to see the combination of the domains in a way that might, if someone's linear, you can show it one way, and if they're visual and need to see the contextualization of it, the pictures sometimes help to show the work, the who, the organization, the systems, and then the information flow. A lot of times it's just a great tool to help for those that are the yellows, the big picture thinkers. They might be looking for more of that. Okay, last client. So a third client who's in financial services, and they were strategically shifting. They had been over the last few years. This is going to be familiar to our financial friends. They were building out a new core. They were actually trialing it to see if they could start from scratch, kind of a greenfield approach, just because we all know how hard it is to change our core systems. And they were being successful. They had their first product go through it. They had done all the foundational parts they needed and the building blocks to be successful in terms of accounts and customers and regulations and financial. And then they had their first product come through, and it was really well received. And you can imagine the demand started to come in from all the other business units when they started to see what they could do. So now they were faced with from going from a technology builder, as they put it, to being a product-driven organization. And they had multiple growing pains to solve, kind of a similar startup situation. So they had the growing business demands. Their agile teams were becoming really bogged down with communication. Anyone have that problem where all of a sudden what was supposed to be very efficient agile teams are now spending more time coordinating across? So they were facing that and trying to figure out, they had done scaled agile and safe and combinations with some struggles. Those that have lived through that. And then increased tech debt as well. They were starting to reprioritize as more was coming in. The priorities from the top of the house kept shifting priorities, which meant to more shelved work, not properly seeing resource planning, and they were just there was a lot of heroics happening within the team. So we worked with them, and some of the bridges we helped them with. You'll see some visualization. Like first, it was just uncovering, looking at the capabilities and getting a feel for where they were on the maturity map, understanding their value streams, all the good stuff we do. What was important for them though, and where they started to get aha moments, is when we took all of that and put it together and did a conference room pilot for it. It was instead of we had workshops before to do the maps, but we actually created, how will you do your work differently? And we role played, we put the situations in front of them. We described going around our operating model circle, how their processes were changing, how a new team with different roles and responsibilities was coming in, how their measures had to be different and what we had designed with them. The systems and tools they were going to be used to be able to have visibility to all the information, how they had to upskill and shift mindsets, because the way they were working before, their teams had to really evolve in that. And then lastly, where were the investments for maturity scaling? And you can imagine we had a lot of discussions on short-term levers, the things they could do in the short term to help them deal with this massive amount of work coming in. And then those long-term levers that they really had to start prioritizing and working on today to be able to do that more effectively into the future. So what was really cool is we were, you get the vibes like, yeah, I'll do this thing and okay. And you get a lot of questions. But when they actually went through the work and did the work and saw the models for prioritization and how we had simplified the models for what was going to work for them, so that the top of the house was prioritizing with the same criteria as the team that was actually managing across the agile teams into the agile teams themselves, and how everything was transparent across and down and using similar framework. We were getting the aha moments of, we always love to do the one word exercise, just to make it simple for people in terms of the retro. And we were getting confident and convinced that they want to make these changes going forward. Initially hesitant, but I see how all the pieces are coming together. So sometimes a simple mock it up. You don't have to. Yeah, you make it real. You make it simple. We talk a lot about pilots, but doing it in 8 hours was really effective for a bridge. So, yeah. Okay, key takeaways, Joe. Number one,
which I would probably
good to remember.
Be good to remember. Yeah. Small differences in perception can lead to big chasms, right? If two people start walking very close together and they only get a little bit further apart each day, next thing you know, they're way out, right? They're in two different cities, and it doesn't take a lot. So keep that communication going, keep bridging, keep bringing people back to the same place.
That really goes to the second one, mapping points to opportunities. So really thinking about those partners that have similar tools, or we heard a lot about it all week. How do we make those connections so that we're actually using the way we all influence the organization towards common goals in our strategy? And then the last one, designing and testing those bridges is a team effort. So when we went and did that conference room pilot, we had all of their key team members at that pilot, including their internal clients. So it takes everyone to come together and actually solve complex problems. So love your partners like you guys are already doing. Yeah. And with that, we'll take some questions and kind of end on a quote, because this seemed appropriate for all of us. Think different, Steve Jobs. starts with all of us. We're just the drop in the water that's gonna expand. So
How's the online queue? Yeah.
Do you have a canned set of criteria that you use when measuring the maturity of the capabilities of a company that you work with? Is that something you bring them and then refine with the clients depending upon their unique thoughts and values? People are.
I'm going to give an everlasting consultant answer. It depends. Because the frame for the client, there are similarities across clients, but their frame is always different. For example, a client that we were working with last year had a stated goal of being Factory 4.0 ready. That was one of the things they wanted to achieve, medical manufacturing. So we framed their capabilities around the Factory 4.0 pillars and determined maturity based on where they were with regard to those and the capabilities associated with each pillar and how much further they had to go. That was meaningful to them. I went down the street, took it to the next client, they'd say factory what? And it wouldn't be very useful. So
we do have starting points, but then we do tailor. We like to talk a lot about, I mean, it's just what we do in business architects as a practice, right? You want to meet the individual you're working with where they're at and partner to get to that common goal. So we have all the best practices and tools, but what we do is we try to tailor them to actually meet if you don't want to use the word value streams, we can change it. Work pathways, what's going to work for you, right? Any other questions? I know we've actually
There's one.
had this topic all week, which is exciting for me to see the evolution.
Hi, so you guys talked about business architecture being a common language to bridge the chasm, but we also talked all week and in this presentation about making sure we don't use too much business architecture language so that people can understand. So what is the balance between business architecture as a common language and not using it too much?
So I would say it's not the language of business architecture that's the common language. It's the concepts of business architecture that create the common language. So it's not the words value stream. It's what value are you going to deliver? Who are you going to deliver it to? What are the steps you have to take to deliver value, right? So they don't have to be the business architect. They are the user, the recipient of the business architect. So it gives you a stake in the ground to translate from and to, but you don't have to expect them to learn it.
Yeah, I would add, okay, key trick, you probably all use it already, but so the maps are what are the analysis and give the common framework. But what we find clients actually reacting to best is the questions. So when we talk about strategy, we're saying the why. When we're talking about capabilities, what's the work you do? We're talking about processes, how do you get from point A to point B to deliver value to your customers? And that the questions seems to really relate where people go, you can kind of see that light bulb go on. So I agree with Joe. The business architecture is the foundation that helps all of us be successful. And then how we translate it, I think, is how we help our whole organizations be successful.
Okay, one more online.
Do you capture aha moments in metrics and numbers?
Ooh, they're usually, maybe we should. Only because we do, like, at the end of every work session, we will actually do what we call an elevator. Okay, another trick, elevator pitch. You ever see people, you come together for 3 days or a day or 4 hours or 2 hours. There's great work, everyone's energetic. And then when everyone goes out into the organization, you hear different points of view. So we'll actually come together at the end of a session and have everyone say, what did we do? Who did we do it with? Why did we do it? And what did we accomplish together in this session? And what else needs to be done? And that way it gets sent out to everyone. So we're all using a common story as to what we did. Because again, the perceptions, we're all going to take away individually what we did. And then we talk through the aha moments, and we actually write them down, because then you come back to them over and over again. And they usually lead back to, I guess this would be the key. They eventually lead back to, what are you trying to accomplish? So we always have what's the strategy? What's our objectives? What are going to be our measures? The aha moments are more of the verbal story that helps people understand them.
And the emotional attachment, right? Because we're people, we're human beings. And when you're